our next company to present is LBT Innovations. LBT's ASX code is LBT. The market cap is approximately 20 million. LBT Innovations is a groundbreaking designer of advanced technology solutions for the medical industry. The company's core capabilities include AI, image analysis, and software engineering solutions that improve medical diagnostic workflows. Presenting for the company today is Chief Executive Officer and Managing Director, Brent Barnes. Brent, welcome back, and please take it away.
Great. Thanks, Manny, and really excited to give today's update. Let's go straight into the highlight slide. We don't have a lot of time here. I wanted to start with who our customers are. So we're selling and working with pharmaceutical manufacturing companies. So that could be someone like AstraZeneca, who we've got a partnership with, or it could be a group called a contract drug manufacturing organisation that manufacture drugs on behalf of somebody else. And Thermo Fisher are one of the leaders in that space. So if you can kind of consider those characteristics of the companies we're working with, you typically think of large, global, billions of dollars in revenue. And because pharmaceutical manufacturing is a highly regulated process, quality is really important. And the cost of getting it wrong has the potential to be significant. So think warning letters, think product recalls. And I guess it's for these reasons that we've found dealing with these companies, looking at automation as an example, is that they're very sophisticated in their thinking and they're very sophisticated in their process for looking at new technologies. And I guess it's within that context and framework, the last 6 months have been super exciting for the company. Last week, we announced our first sale into the biopharmaceutical market, and that was with Thermo Fisher. Thermo Fisher are in the top 5 largest contract drug manufacturing companies in the world. And so that's a pretty big deal. It's great to have our instrument now within that ecosystem that has the potential for, we think, further expansion within that group. And that's really on the back of upgrading our guidance. We did announce in January that we expected sales to occur in the first half, which is about 6 months ahead of when we had previously given guidance to the market. And I think importantly, as we've been finalising this R&D, which we're expecting to have completed in the near term, AstraZeneca have been presenting at various pharmaceutical conferences, illustrating the positive performance that they've been having utilising our technology. So next slide talks a bit more about the workflow and tries to visualise, I think, exactly what it is that we're trying to offer these pharmaceutical companies that are manufacturing drugs. Firstly, drugs are manufactured in a clean room. Clean rooms are sterile. There's different grades of clean rooms, but the whole purpose of a clean room is that they're clean. And that's important. The way that the manufacturing process is designed for determining whether the environment is clean or not is by putting a culture plate inside of that clean room. And so starting from the left-hand side, you'll see a picture of what a agar plate looks like, or a culture plate. It's then placed inside of that clean room during the manufacturing process, rotated every 4 hours, and then it's put into an incubator, which is just like a fridge. And after 5 days of incubation, you have a microbiologist sitting at a bench, taking the lid off and reading the plate. And it's a really important, in fact, it's the most critical part of that workflow in terms of getting it right. Most of the time there is nothing grown, but that result is extremely important and is part of a gatekeeper process to ensure that drugs are released into the market that are safe and effective. So then tying into, well, what do we do across that workflow? This next slide talks about, this digital disruption and what our product does. Our goal is to have the APAS Pharma QC product, that's what we call it, the gold standard for culture plate reading in that biopharmaceutical manufacturing process. The product is pretty simple in the way that it works. You load the instrument up with all of the culture plates. So think from that previous workflow, someone would go from the incubator, they'd go and grab all these plates, then they're bulk loaded into the input module. A session is started, and then the user walks away. And what the instrument will then do is move those plates through an imaging station. So the photo is taken, an algorithm has been trained with really, really high sensitivity and performance. It'll then analyze the plate and digitally report those results, as well as physically sort those plates to the right-hand side of the instrument. And so what it means is that it does it in a highly effective and an efficient way, and it is faster and more accurate than the current process, which is 2 microbiologists looking at plates. So if you think, why is that important? Why does it matter to automate this part of the process? The next slide kind of tries to talk about that. And really, our customers care about improving their processes because they know that the cost of getting something wrong has the potential to be significant. Pharmaceutical manufacturing is highly regulated. Customers are looking at ways to improve quality control, traceability of those results, and data integrity. There's some data points there around some of the trends that we're seeing in terms of increase of warning letters and observations as a result of data quality issues and just the cost of getting things wrong. But, you kind of think about, well, what's the value proposition of our product? So if you like, that's why they should be interested. This next slide talks about, well, what does APAS, what does our technology do for them? And really, it's a perfect application for an artificial intelligence type of operation that is a repetitive task. In fact, AstraZeneca reported in their pilot study that APAS identified a plate that was missed by their current standard process. And that process is 2 microbiologists who read all the plates. And it was a tiny little colony that was identified in the corner of the plate. The point here is that it's not really about AZ getting it wrong or missing a plate. It's an industry-wide issue. Industry knows and industry acknowledge that the current process has errors. And so when you think about an opportunity to de-risk and provide automation, it's a perfect application for that highly repetitive task. And because the auto reporting, the digital reports that happen and are transferred directly to the IT systems, it means you don't have any touch time. It means that you provide that automation without any hands-on or user-driven interaction. Obviously, that's going to reduce errors. And then finally, there's an efficiency gain with all of this. So it'll happen about 3 times faster than the current process of having 2 microbiologists looking at all of these plates. And the market opportunity is pretty large. And we're focused on a really large growing market segment. And this next slide kind of says, when you think about medicines and it's only growing or a trend of growing, and that's expected to continue. And so this next slide, if you can just move on, just talks to a reference that we've got from a biotech market research group that talks about the total number of biopharmaceutical clean rooms globally to be about 8,000. And so that's specifically for biopharma. There are many other type of clean rooms, for example, in the electronics part of the business. So this is very specific to our target market. And that's expected to grow to about 15,000 labs in 2023. And so, look, it's a market that's growing and one that we think is very exciting, which is a good segue into our sales model. This next slide talks about how we sell the product and the revenue model associated with it. For every 1 instrument that we sell to one of these customers into one of those labs, we expect to generate around $1 million Australian of revenue per sale. And the way to kind of think about that is that the instrument itself, the physical hardware, is about $500,000. So that's an upfront cost. And then there is an annuity. And so that's for the software, that's for the service. The software is not an opt-in or opt-out. It's part of the kind of reading and it's really the heart or the intelligence of the capability and of the software. The useful life is, the $1 million here is based on a 5-year useful life. We'd expect it to be 5 to 7 years. We do have competition. The next slide kind of outlines this. We've got 2 competitors. The biggest competitors is the one in the middle, Rapid Microbiosystem. They're NASDAQ listed, and they claim to have 140 instruments that have been installed. And so kind of going back to that, well, what's the total addressable market being 8,000? You can see that only 140 hasn't really scraped the surface. And the reason for that is because they combine the incubation and the reading in one, and that has a really big scalability challenge that's associated with it. Unfortunately, I haven't got the time to go through the details, but there's some big differences around how our product works versus the competitors. AstraZeneca on this next slide has been a cornerstone customer for ours. It was over a year ago in January of 2023 that we signed a partnering agreement with them where they've actually paid us $1.1 million to bring a fully validated product into the market. And it was really AI or software driven. And we've now largely completed that R&D work. We expect to have that finalized in the near term, but most of that that money has been received. But I think more importantly than the funding, they've had an instrument for close to a year now. They've been running a whole bunch of pilot studies on validated or pre-production ready algorithms, and they've been already presenting that data at global conferences. And the data is super exciting, very, very encouraging, and is very important to have a customer talking about our technology on our behalf. Just in terms of the corporate overview here, at the end of last year, we successfully kind of completed a financial restructure. So the next slide kind of has the kind of share graph, but we raised $4.5 million as part of that process. And I think importantly here is that we're able to pay out a share placement facility that was really deteriorating our share price. And you can kind of look for yourselves the way that graph kind of looks. So that's been paid out, no longer a shareholder. We're able to restructure some debt with the South Australian government, and really kind of cleaned up that register. The board management, myself personally included, were fairly significant as part of that capital raise. We collectively now own about 20% of the company. Like many businesses looking to extend their cash runway, we've also kind of optimized our quarterly cash burn or our yearly spend, and we certainly believe we've got cash runway into 2025, giving consideration to the multiple sales that we've already indicated to the market we expect into that pharmaceutical business. So wrapping up in terms of the outlook, we're really at the start of gaining meaningful commercial traction in this exciting market. We've been really laser focused over the past 12 months, finishing off that R&D work for the APAS Pharma QC product. And investors should now have the confidence that, the company's signaling that we will have that finished in this first quarter, and expect that in the very near term. And that's quite important. Us finalizing that R&D means that AstraZeneca can then get busy with their formal validation process, and that will take some months. And once that's finished, expect a rollout across their global network, which is multiple instruments that would occur, and that's starting in the second half of next calendar year. So I'll pause there now, Manny, to take any questions.
Thank you, Brent. Look, the question you touched on this during the presentation. In terms of your APAS Pharma, you talked about the competitors in the space. Now, if you could just give us a little bit more color on how is the LBT product different, and more importantly, what are your competitive advantages with that product, and how do you plan to keep that sort of advantage?
Yeah, and look, I did skip over that one fairly quickly just in time, but look, I'll break it down super simply. It's scale. So the competitors, because they have an incubator, so that's like the big fridge, and the reading system as a combined unit, it means that they can't scale the operation. And so I'll give you some example about what I mean there. The capacity of the incubator for the Rapid Microbiosystems product is 660 plates. The incubation time is 5 days. So the maths there is kind of 660 divided by 5 is about 132 plates that would be generated per day. So if you're generating just 132 plates on a daily basis that need to be incubated and read, you would have one instrument. AstraZeneca, at the one facility that we have our instrument at the moment, they do 1,000 plates a day. So you would need 7 to 8 of those competitor instruments to match the scale, the throughput. Each of those instruments are between $500,000 to $600,000. And so it just became completely uneconomical. And that's why AstraZeneca, having reviewed the alternatives that existed in the market, actually said, well, we'll pay you $1.1 million to accelerate and get this endpoint reader. We can use our existing incubators. We don't need an incubator. We use our existing incubators. We use our existing media, and let's make sure that the validation works. And if it does what you say it does, we're going to have, they'll probably buy 2 instruments at the site. They'll buy 2 instruments for the one facility versus spending, nearly $3 million for some of the competitor instruments that exist. So it's that scale issue, which is the primary differentiation.
Okay, and just a quick question in terms of the international rollout for APAS Pharma. How is that going? From a geographic perspective, where are you? Where are you really sort of punching well, and what are the other geographies that you're trying to get or that you're focusing on?
Yeah, so our strategy is really clear. So it's kind of a land and expand strategy. What we're doing is going after the biggest pharma companies by revenue globally and the biggest CDMO companies globally. And what we found, back to that, they're very sophisticated. In each case, they've got a central group. So AstraZeneca have a central group that govern all of their global sites, and it happens to be based in the UK. And so we could have 10 salespeople contacting all of the sites globally, but it'll end up going to that central group. And we found the same with Thermo Fisher, who we made the other sale to. So our strategy is to be laser focused on big pharma, big CDMO, find the right person, and go through a sales process with a centralized group. And what it means is that we start a validation process with that customer. It's typically at a single site with a view that once it's validated, it is then rolled out and standardized across their manufacturing network. And so it's multiple instruments for AstraZeneca, potential multiple instruments for Thermo Fisher. And when we think about kind of the top pharma, that's kind of the same, that's kind of the same ballpark you'd expect. So land and expand strategy is what we're focused on.
Okay, thanks, Brent. And just to wrap it up, a quick question on, in terms of balance sheet and funding, I take it you're quite comfortable at this point in time, sort of looking out over the next or the remainder of 2024?
Yeah, absolutely. We're not looking to raise capital. We did that just at the end of last year. So we're in a really strong position to that extent.
Okay. Well, Brent, thank you for your time today. That was great. And have a great weekend, and we hope to see you back soon.
See you next time. Thanks, Manny. Thanks all.
Hey, Brent.